On January 8, 2019, the Spanish police received a report of the disappearance of a 27-year-old mother of two. Her husband claimed that she left the house after an argument and never returned. However, the investigation revealed strikingly harsh facts that complicated the case. Ramina Núñez Rodriguez was born in 1990 in Asunción in the Central Department of Paraguay, the daughter of Miriam Rodriguez and an unknown man. Her parents were able to give her and her younger sister an excellent education even though they had a low income. But since there were so many problems at home, Ramina, as a teenager, decided to work to feed her family. At the age of 18, she had a relationship with a young man named Christian, and through this relationship she gave birth to her first son, Lucas. Eventually, the couple decided to end their failed romance. After giving birth, Ramina began to carefully consider her options and came to the conclusion that she would never be able to support her child in Paraguay. In addition to the help of her parents, the girl contacted her aunt living in Spain, who invited her to go there in 2010 to find a better future for her son. Full of hope, Ramina packed her bags and went to Spain. Leaving her son in the care of her mother, she went in search of new opportunities. The girl moved to Alcobendas to live with her aunt and cousin, and immediately began looking for work. She wanted to save as much money as possible to transport her son. Very soon, Ramina found herself in the arms of love again when she met a young Ecuadorian bricklayer who, like her, immigrated in search of better opportunities. In the first years of their new relationship, everything went so smoothly that the girl became pregnant with her second child. But in the end they began to quarrel a lot and made a decision breakdown. Ramina didn't know what to do after the birth of her second child and another failed romance. But she was determined to stay in Spain and began sharing an apartment with a friend to cut costs. Ramina had just recovered from her second failed romance when she was completely stunned by the news that she had cancer. The girl had to endure several difficult months of therapy. Fortunately, the clinic helped her overcome the disease. But due to the side effects of chemotherapy, she lost some hair. Thanks to a series of procedures and extensions, she was able to look her best and walk around with her signature wide smile. Rising from the ashes, Ramina decided that it was time to start over, both in her professional and personal life. In the spring of 2017, she still had hopes of finding true love, and when she met 41-year-old Raul Diaz Chacon at a party, she believed that she had found him. The man, a manufacturing engineer at the company, was 14 years older than her and had 2 daughters from an unsuccessful marriage. This grown man completely captivated Ramina and she could not stop talking about him. Apparently Raul was just as captivated by her, and Ramina told her friends about it. He was attentive and lovingly showered her with gifts and flowers. Ramina was delighted as soon as she began to see a future with him, because she believed that she had finally found love and would be able to raise her 2 children and become a full-fledged family. However, her family's friends did not share her opinion because they saw many of Raul's problems as well as their age difference. The man was not stopped by the refusal of Ramina's family because he wanted to make his wife happy. Their relationship developed rapidly, and in the early summer of 2018 they decided to move together to the island of Lanzarote, namely to a luxury residential complex in the municipality of Costa Tugs. Raul convinced Ramina to marry him and spend some time without children after the wedding to strengthen their bond. He made Ramina 1,000 promises in a new home, telling her that he would treat her like a queen and that the 2 of them would make a happy family. Ramina thought it was a good idea, so she flew back to Paraguay and left her youngest son in the care of her mother as well as her eldest. She returned to Lanzarote alone thinking it was a good plan, but Raul beat her just a few days before the wedding. The girl did not think that this was a sign that she should not get married. So although he gave her several bouquets of flowers and promised not to hit her again, he convinced her not to file a report against him, saying that he simply could not contain his emotions and that this would not happen again. They then began planning their wedding, which took place on August 10th of that year. When Ramina's mother asked her why she was in Paraguay a few days after the wedding, she replied that her husband wanted her to spend more time with her family. The woman was surprised by several things when Ramina returned to Paraguay on August 19th. Firstly, the young woman was wearing a neck brace and claimed that her spine hurt. Secondly, the woman noticed several bruises on her daughter's body, but Ramina said that she hit the table. Finally, the woman thought that her brother-in-law had done well by buying an expensive ticket, but she did not know that Ramina had borrowed it from her younger sister. After a short stay at her parents' house, the girl left and returned to Spain, where her once fairy tale turned into a horrific nightmare due to Raul's drug addiction, which led him to drink and beat her. Months passed and Ramina gradually ceased to be the cheerful person everyone knew as the bullying from her husband intensified. By the end of the year, she was so hopeless that she decided to confess to her friends, telling them that she was afraid that Raul would kill her the next time he couldn't control himself. One of these multiple beatings occurred on December 29th, and due to poor health, Ramina went to the emergency room complaining of excruciating pain in her ribs and bruises on her arms and chest. But before a doctor could see her, her husband showed up at the hospital and convinced her to leave, turning to no one for help. She obeyed, and it turned out to be a serious mistake that cost the young woman her life. On December 31st, Ramina contacted her parents. They talked for a while, talked about what they were going to do that day, and decided to get in touch on January 1st. This, however, never happened. Ramina's mother contacted her several times but did not receive an answer, and then called her son-in-law, but he did not pick up the phone either. The Mothra's anxiety became stronger and stronger every day. Ultimately, she managed to contact Raul on January 7, 2019. The man said that Ramina had a fight with him on New Year's Eve because she asked for 5,000 euros to send the children to Spain. But Raul refused her this idea, and, so that they would not have a quarrel, he left home for a while. Raul claimed that when he returned, Ramina was no longer there, and she took about 200 euros, almost all of her clothes and his cell phones. Raul then assured the victims' relatives that there was nothing to worry about since Ramina had left during previous quarrels and that she would undoubtedly return to apologize. The young woman's relatives did not believe this, and because of this insisted that Raul report her disappearance to the police. The man complained to the civil guard on January 8th, and they immediately began a search. During his testimony, Raul admitted to the police that they had quarreled on New Year's Eve and that each of them left the house separately. He then said that when he returned home, Ramina was no longer there. She took the money, clothes and phone, so he came to the conclusion that Ramina left for a few days to think, as she supposedly did in the past. As a result, he was not worried and did not file a missing person report. During interrogation, the man gave evasive answers to questions, which is why his story did not convince the police. When Raul realized that the authorities were watching him, he gave an interview to the media in which he portrayed himself as a loving husband concerned about the disappearance of his wife. He assumed that since she had several contacts in Madrid and Valencia and perhaps she went there. However, members of Ramina's family were sure that this man was somehow involved in her unusual absence. The police also had serious suspicions and studied the biography of the couple. The realization that not everything in the marriage was as perfect as it seemed was the first sign that they should not trust Raul's account of events. Police learned of several violent incidents, including the fact that 3 days before Ramina's disappearance, she filed a complaint of abuse that was almost immediately withdrawn. Investigators also learned that several months earlier, Raul had actually forced his wife to take their youngest son to Paraguay because that, as mentioned earlier, he allegedly wanted to spend some time alone with her. Investigators also discovered other messages that Ramina wrote to friends alleging that Raul had attacked her. The guy was placed under civil guard surveillance in the early stages of the investigation, partly because he only reported his wife missing a week later, and by this point he was already the main suspect. But even though they had circumstantial evidence, and were unable to obtain a warrant upon his arrest, investigators were confident that he was responsible for Ramina's disappearance. So they decided to secretly tap his phone to intercept calls and see if they could uncover more information about him. The officers listened to all the discussions, which did not yield any results for several days. But on January 13th they heard a call that attracted their attention. During this conversation, Raul informed his cousin who served in the police about his version of what happened to Ramina. He claimed that when he and Ramina were drinking during the December 31st celebration, she screamed at him and demanded money so that she could transport her children from Paraguay. When he refused, she became upset and began to fight with him. At that moment, he left the house to avoid a more serious conflict, and when he returned an hour later, he found her unconscious in the bathroom. When he tried to revive her, he discovered that she had stopped breathing. In a panic, he thought about calling the police but decided that they probably wouldn't believe him and would hold him responsible for her death. Then Raul decided that it was best to get rid of the body. He lit a barbecue and tried to burn her body, but the body did not burn even though it lay there for several hours. Then he came up with another plan, divided her body into bags and put the bags in the washing machine. To get rid of his wife's remains, he packed the suitcases in the trunk of a rented car and on January 3rd went to a secluded part of the island. A relative advised him to give up, but he refused to do so and stated that it did not matter. Because authorities had the evidence they needed, Raul was taken into custody at his home on January 13th. After police showed him the recording of the conversation, he told them a slightly altered version in which he also denied killing his wife. He said that he found a lot of drugs in the house and believed that the young woman had overdosed, after which, in a panic, he got rid of the body. Raul also gave the police the addresses where the remains were located. The investigator did not consider this new version reliable because Ramina's family stated that she did not use drugs and wouldn't do anything dangerous. According to the addresses where Ramina's remains were supposed to be located, with the help of divers and a helicopter, the civil guard conducted a 3-day search at sea. Raul was charged with murder and continuing abuse when he appeared in court on January 16th. There were many inconsistencies in Raul's statements, and he also changed them when it suited him. After his statements, he was placed under arrest by the court, which found that there was enough evidence to suspect him of murdering his wife. Because they weren't sure Raul was telling the truth, investigators decided to temporarily stop searching for remains off the coast on Thursday, January 17th. Instead, they focused on following Raul everywhere and looking for evidence in his family's home. During the search, several interesting things turned up, including that the man bought paint and caustic soda between January 2nd and 6th. In addition, it turned out that in these days he rented a car and drove about 1,000 kilometers in 4 days. Investigators also searched the couple's home and found traces of blood in the bedroom shower and on the duvet cover. In addition, pieces of a woman's fingernails with traces of the accused's skin were scattered throughout the house, as well as contact lenses and false eyelashes. With the help of a special civil guard dog, police found traces of DNA in the trunk of the car, suggesting that the car was used to transport Ramina's remains. The search for the remains continued, but despite great efforts they were never found. After some time, a tourist appeared who claimed that she had found the lung on January 5th on Lance Road Beach in the Costa Tejas, a few kilometers from Ramina and her husband's house. Investigators believed that the lung belonged to a dolphin and did not suspect that it could be related to this case. But at that time they had only one hope. They were waiting for results from the Institute of Forensic Medicine. On February 21st, detectives finally received evidence that the lung belonged to Ramina. The investigation claimed that Raul killed Ramina on January 1st at an unknown hour, and it was not possible to determine how he killed her. Next, he developed a strategy. Raul cut her body into pieces in one of the upper rooms in his house, and then spent hours burning the leftovers on the barbecue. The man rented a car on January 3rd, and during these few days he drove more than 1,000 kilometers in it. He was looking for a place where he could get rid of his wife's head and limbs. At the end of the same year, the court completed its investigation of the case. A number of factors led to the postponement of the trial date. Firstly, the global health emergency led to the postponement of the trial, and secondly, during this time the judge was changed several times. Also, the accused changed lawyers several times. For 4 whole years, the man claimed that Ramina had already been found dead and that he had hidden the remains of her body in a panic. But at this stage of the trial the man finally admitted that he had taken the life of the young woman. He claimed that the incident occurred early in the morning of January 1st, 2019. Raul also admitted that he beat her, and did it because he did not see her as a whole person. In total, he was sentenced to 15 years and 9 months in prison. At the end of the hearing, the judge noted the horrific way in which Raul disposed of the woman's body. The judge also said that he believed that Raul considered his wife inferior to him, and took out all his anger on her. Raul was then sent to a penitentiary center for serving the sentence. Friends, write your opinion in the comments, and also subscribe to the channel and watch my other videos. Thank you all.